Good morning. Thank you, Yaakov, and thanks to the Jerusalem Post for hosting this important event in the diplomatic calendar. Distinguished guests, ambassadors, and diplomats from around the world, members of the media, colleagues, and friends. When Moses sent 12 spies, one from each tribe, to tour Canaan, the biblical name of the state of Israel, and he sent them to tour Canaan for 40 days. He gave them both a diplomatic mission and a journalistic assignment to report back to him on the land and its people. Only two of them, Joshua and Caleb, came back with a positive report. Not only did they say that the land was flowing with milk and honey, but as proof, they brought back delicious fruits from the land of Israel. Now I know that, like Joshua and Caleb, you all send positive reports about Israel back to your home countries. Now you're supposed to laugh, didn't succeed, okay? Because you have seen for yourselves all the good things that Israel has to offer. Not just the delicious fruit, of course, but also the amazing quality of life advances we have made in high-tech, in cyber tech, medicine, and water recycling, and most recently, in the discovery of natural gas, advances that benefit not just Israel, but citizens of the region and across the globe. I'll mention just one more thing. Whenever there is a crisis or natural disaster in another country, Israel is usually the first to offer emergency humanitarian aid. We're proud that in times of great tragedy, we are often the first to arrive and the last to leave. And we ask nothing in return because we really believe from the bottom of our heart that this is the role of Israel as a Jewish state. Yet, the media coverage of Israel tends to focus on two negative phenomena that I happen to be in charge of fighting in my double role as Minister of Strategic Affairs and Minister of Public Security. One, of course, is terrorism. Over the past year, I have led, together, of course, with the police and with the military, Israel's response to the wave of lone wolf terror inspired by online Islamist incitement. The other is BDS, the so-called boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement that points the finger of blame at Israel while ignoring injustices elsewhere in the Middle East and around the world. I want to talk about these two issues, terrorism and BDS, and why there is actually good news when it comes to Israel's battles against them. Let's start with terrorism, a phenomenon that the whole world suffers from. My ministry reported last week that terrorist incidents in Jerusalem have dropped dramatically over the past year, and it's also related to Judea and Samaria. How did we do it? Well, we adopted a strategy combining a number of key factors. These include carrying out extensive police operations in all parts of the city, outlawing radical Islamist groups responsible for inciting violence, fighting against the culture of hate being taught in too many Palestinian schools, and installing, for example, cutting-edge smart cameras at key sites. We have also greatly enhanced our intelligence gathering and monitoring of incitement on social media. This monitoring alone has helped us prevent 134 terror attacks. I can also reveal to you that as part of our strategic plan to make all parts of Jerusalem safe for all its residents, We are deploying over 1,200 additional officers throughout the capital. So yes, despite the media image of Jerusalem as a dangerous city, the opposite is now true. It is one of the safest places, if not the safest, in the Middle East. The facts and statistics speak for themselves, and so does the increase in tourism and investment. Just as the goal of terrorism is to spread fear and instability, BDS aims to delegitimize and isolate Israel, and in the end, to destroy it. Let me be clear. Neither terrorism nor BDS will succeed. We won't let them. But it is important to understand that although their tools are different, of course, BDS and terrorism are united in their destructive goals. They are also united in their language of hate, especially on social media. And they are united in their opposition to peaceful cooperation and compromise, and ultimately a peaceful long-term solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that everyone in this room is so eager to achieve. Despite BDS campaigns on campuses, unions, and churches across the globe, most people don't buy their hateful propaganda. This, by the way, includes the Palestinian people who not only choose Israeli products over Palestinian ones, but have often been harmed most by sanctions against Israel. For example, when the boycotts of SodaStream resulted in the closure of its Ma'ale Edomim factory in the West Bank and its move to the Negev last year, more than 500 Palestinian workers lost their jobs. Very sad. That's why more and more governments are taking concrete steps against BDS. Listen to this. Anti-BDS legislation has already been passed by the US Congress, 14 US states, and the UK government, and there is many more on the way. French and Spanish courts have recently declared BDS activity illegal, and leading banks in 5 European countries have closed down BDS accounts. Once again, the facts speak for themselves. As many of you have witnessed for yourselves, most of the world is eagerly increasing businesses' ties with Israel. Last year, direct foreign investment in Israel increased by over 70%, a staggering amount by any measurement. We live in difficult, challenging times. When we look at the world today, and at the Middle East in particular, we see widespread destruction, violence, and death, especially in Syria and Iraq. We have seen the death of more than 500,000 people in Syria. We see the ongoing horrors being carried out by ISIS. And it's not just jihadist groups like ISIS that spread hate. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas are also teaching a new generation of Palestinian youth to hate Israel and to hate the Jews. How can anyone honestly argue that Israel today is the obstacle to peace in the Middle East? BDS wants people to believe that Israel is not a vibrant democracy, but rather an illegitimate state. Such lies feed international bodies like UNESCO, which recently hit a new low by passing a resolution that erases Jewish ties to the Temple Mount. Other international bodies, such as the UN Human Rights Council, often single out Israel while ignoring real tragedies around the world. This is a case of pure hypocrisy and double standards, and the absurdity of this approach is that it is totally and completely counterproductive. Now here is the key point that I want you to take away from this speech. What many people don't understand is that the ideological roots of both Palestinian terror and the BDS campaign are exactly the same. BDS is not about human rights. Both of them are about the rejection of Israel's right to exist as the nation state of the Jewish people. This is not a conflict about territory, but about religion and ideology. In one case, this ideology leads Palestinian youth to pick up knives and stab Jews. In the other, the BDS, it leads to the delegitimization of Israel as an illegal entity which deserves to be boycotted. And we will soon reveal the legal violations committed by BDS groups and their connections to supporters of terror organizations. Terror and hate, as I said, are counterproductive to peace, and BDS is counterproductive to peace. And this is where you come in. The international community can and must play a key role in combating this ideology and creating the conditions productive for peace. You must make it clear to the Palestinians that spreading violent incitement will have consequences, that teaching hate will never lead to peace, and that attempts to delegitimize Israel in the international arena will get them nowhere. These messages must be backed up by actions, by how you vote the next time UNESCO seeks to erase Jewish heritage, or when the Human Rights Council singles Israel out for criticism. And the international community must make clear that it rejects BDS in all its forms, that 100 years after the Balfour Declaration and 70 years after the UN partition plan, Israel's existence as the nation state of the Jewish people is not up for debate. Only recognition of this basic fact can bring a real conciliation between our peoples. Anwar Sadat understood this when Egypt made peace with Israel. King Hussein understood this when Jordan made peace with Israel. Until there is a Palestinian leader brave enough to stand up and recognize Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people, a viable peace will remain a dream. Now, don't ask me why Israel needs this recognition. You always say, why do you need it? Israel is a fact, and that is true. We don't need this recognition. The Jewish state is an established fact. But those who demand that we make painful concessions on our ancient homeland, and it's not only our historical and biblical rights, as we saw in Gaza, it is also a risk for our security, they must convince us that the other side is truly committed to an end of the conflict and lasting peace. This recognition of Israel as a Jewish state is the expression of that commitment. Unfortunately, I look around and don't see a Palestinian leader capable of taking such a step today. I believe, however, that if each of your countries make this a core demand from the Palestinians and repeats it over and over and don't put the pressure only on the wrong side, we may see the day in which we have a true partner for peace. Our vision is of mutual respect and dignity that leads to a viable and lasting peace with our neighbors. Right now, it may seem like an impossible dream, but let me remind you that it was a Likud government that made peace with Egypt, and I believe that a Likud government can make peace with the Palestinians if we will have a real partner on the other side. By rejecting incitement, delegitimization, and the culture of hate and building bridges instead, you can help remove the obstacles to peace, the real obstacles to peace. By insisting that the Palestinians recognize Israel as a Jewish state and sit down to direct face-to-face negotiations, you can help make this vision a reality. Dear friends, the world deserves a peaceful Middle East. With your support, we can turn that dream into our reality. Thank you very much.